Before I go into spoilers, I would like to remind you guys that Rogue Energy is still a proud partner for this channel. My affiliation with them is still going on, so as a friendly reminder, click on the link for the website in the description below, and type in the coupon code HAWK525 to save 10% if you want awesome energy. There are plenty of options and a number of several flavors for the energy side of things, or the hydration series if you don't want the caffeine. And I think it's a pretty cool place to have your energy as well. So it definitely helps me out whenever you make a purchase with all the links clicked and the coupon code typed in, you know, all that good stuff, and helps me out, and you get some awesome energy. So thank you very much if you take the time to do so. Well, we are here definitely for the One Piece spoilers now. So of course, obviously, if you don't want to stick around with that, you can definitely go ahead and try to see and check it out. So the okay, so I do have episode notes, so each of them will have just a number of random points and stuff like that. So let's begin with episode 1. So the this is very key, right? And this is of course the sort of the beginning of the snowball. And of course that starts with Kobe, right? And Luffy and all that stuff, right? Here Kobe is supposed to speak up here, right? Speak up against Alvida, but he never does that here. However, he does that later on with Garp. So it kind of just gets transferred over, which is kind of weird. I kind of wish he did that here with Alvida as well, to show that, yeah, he can stick up on his own as well. But they saved that for Garp, I guess, to try to have that dramatic effect. But I just felt like it could have been done here, because he's been with Alvida for a pretty good time, right? I think it was time for him to speak up, you know, against Alvida. But otherwise, this was another fight at night, you know, and of course, it's pretty brief, which isn't my detriment. It's just that Kobe never spoke up. You know, that's kind of like the moment, right? That was the moment for Kobe to be like, fuck you, I'm out, you know, be kind of thing. But yeah, anyway, that's one observation or one note. The Baroque works already gets mentioned here within episode 1 already with Mr. 7, of course. This is the first Mr. 7 to note that. The Mr. 7 that we see in Alabasta is the second number 7. With the gun and all that stuff. This one has the swords, and I believe they took concepts from some of like the weird joke art or whatever from Oda, from the SBS, I believe, or you know, the AMA or whatever. And so I thought that was pretty interesting to bring that to life and have an extra scene for it. So I'm all for these extra scenes as long as it works, I guess. Zoro, that's where kind of like that weird like stoicness comes from, but the sneak-ins of these cracking of the jokes with the middle finger was, I thought, pretty cute, but it still comes off with Zoro being too stoic still. Next one is with Luffy when he was young. I thought that was cute, actually. I should have mentioned the young flashback kind of scenes with each of the Straw Hats. Actually pretty well done for the most part. I thought it was cute, especially with Zoro here. But anyway, Luffy, when he eats the fruit, is kind of forced. It's kind of weird, right? It's just like he just happens to find this box, he just opens it and then he eats it, you know? When Luffy in the original one, he eats it out of spite because he's just mad, he's just angry, you know. It's like stupid Shanks, and just you know, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like eating when you're mad, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't know, it just kind of felt forced here, so it's a little weird. It doesn't really add up when it could have been 1-to-1 there. And in fact, the comedic parts of it were lost also. The gags were lost. You know, Shanks literally calls him like a dumbass when Luffy ate the fruit and discovers his powers. You know, and he's the one who tells him like, "Hey, this fruit takes away your ability to swim. How are you gonna be a pirate now?" And then Luffy's like, "No, why? Ah!" And then Shanks is just like, "You dumbass, you idiot!" You know, that moment was just so great in the anime. It's great, if especially during my first time playing it. Um, I guess with yeah, the scenes with Luffy and Kobe are just pretty different. I would say. It doesn't bring out the assholeness that Luffy has in him. You know, like the anime literally has him call Kobe like pathetic and loser and stuff like that. Laughs at him, and Kobe's just like, you know, kind of like in a comedic moment. But I guess they just didn't want to do that. Um, and this is some of the context gets lost, right? And that's with Luffy's motives, right? They're so different that I just can't help but just point them out as a negative, you know? Luffy didn't go to Captain Morgan's base because he wanted to. He wanted to go there because of Zoro, one of them being, because he heard that from Alvida. And Luffy was like, "Oh, I'm looking for strong men and stuff like that." And not so much the map of the Grand Line. The map of the Grand Line, I believe, is with Buggy. He had the Grand Line map, and so that's why the stuff with Nami also came up earlier too, right? And so it definitely like scrambles the story for sure in some more ways than one. So with Luffy's motives, right? It's quite surface level in the Netflix anime, but when it comes to um, the anime, it's quite clear cut. There's more to it than that. I believe he wanted to save the people of the town as well. You know, he wants to help out people too, not just him being king of the pirates and stuff like that. He helps people too. You know, that's kind of the thing about it. But yeah, it definitely is more about Zoro though than anything. So yeah, definitely. But still, Luffy does things differently, not just just because he wants to be the best. But there's quite to him, especially during the early type of stuff. So yeah, Zoro talking. Yeah, I already mentioned about that. There was that bar fight with Zoro, kind of cool, but the choreography could have been better, especially during like that chair kick or the stool kick to somebody's leg or something like that. Cool idea, but the execution wasn't quite there. I've already talked about Nami being like too stern, too hard ass, kind of like making her into like Black Widow kind of thing. Pretty weird to see her being so combat heavy. And oh yes, the transponder snails. That's some of the weird stuff too. They just sound weird. I don't mind them how they look because they're supposed to look weird, but the sounds, man, it was disappointing. It's not that gotcha, that's a key thing. That's a key thing for me, and they don't do that here. They just sound weird. It's just now it adds up to the creepiness. But that's all I got for episode 1. Episode 2, this is a big one because this is some of where my big complaints come in too when it comes to keeping the respect for or keeping things intact for some characters, and that's Buggy's powers, right? Buggy has the chop fruit, excuse me. So he's immune to being chopped. He's immune to being sliced and diced. But what he's not immune to so much is being punched. He's not immune to blunt forces. Meanwhile, Luffy is. But guess what? He's vulnerable to slices. They're the opposite forces. That's what makes things really interesting. But that gets very lost in here. That's some of my big complaints. So his reveal of his powers made no sense to me. It's like, what's the point, what's the point of the chop fruit when you have more than being immune to slicing and stuff like that and flying into parts and stuff like that. Of course, his feet are key to how much range he has. He can't go as far as long as his feet are on the ground. His feet can't fly, and that's like part of the rules for the chop fruit. his feet have to be planted to the ground. I don't see. I don't think I've. Now I don't know if his feet were necessarily flying, but the range doesn't make sense. It's very inconsistent because his head was in the box, and he was being carried around, left and right. I mean, I guess when someone else is holding him, maybe that's what breaks the rules. I don't know. But when he's flying, right, he has to follow the rules according to his legs or his feet. So the range, there's definitely a range limit to how far can he fly his parts or whatever. So yeah, I guess they were trying to make Buggy more powerful, so that's why maybe they wanted to um, have more of the Straw Hats fight, because Luffy in the anime was just whooping his ass, and then Buggy was resorting to the dirty pirate tactics to show this is how pirates really fight. To show Luffy, right, what it takes to be a real pirate. That's some of the interesting storylines, right? That gets lost here once again. Does he say about being a pirate and stuff like that? Sure, maybe, but it's just a lot of implications and not so much actually showing it in a very interesting way. Not to mention, right? Not only his powers were butchered, but a lot of the storylines were butchered here. Like I've been saying, the story with the dog and the dog food store and his owner being gone. It's kind of like Hachi, right? The Hachi story, with the dog being very admirable to wait for his master, even though his master already died at the train station. Kind of the same with the dog. I think it was like Boogie or something, or some weird name or whatever. But that dog was very admirable in that sense too. And Luffy grew to respect that, even though at first that dog was being a shithead to Luffy. The dog hates people for very specific reasons. So Luffy thought that dog was just an asshole to him because of what took place in the anime. But then grew to respect the dog because of what the dog was really doing later on. So that's some of what the big motives were for Luffy to fight Buggy, to take back the town. Is for the dog, right? Not just for the mayor, but for the dog as well, And otherwise, Luffy just doesn't really give a crap too much. It's just those key people he respects is what he cares about, and wants to take back the town and stuff like that. And in fact, he beats Moji's ass to take back the dog food, to give it back to the dog as a piece of like, hey, this is all I got from those assholes. Because those assholes burned the dog food store or whatever. So yeah, he got pissed off and wanted to fight Buggy because of that, I believe. At least one of the notes anyway. And plus, the mayor was being reckless and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. But that gets lost, of course. The mayor was there, but ultimately, it has notes of it, but the ultimate big story for that is lost, Only some remnants were there, but yeah. It was interesting to see, yes, the concept of Buggy holding the town sort of hostage and prisoner and forcing them to laugh, be his audience, That could have been a really interesting concept that could have been explored within the anime as well. But the execution wasn't there, right? I'd say. And it just seemed like they wanted to go for more what the general audience, what they think like to see, like shock value and stuff like that, instead of like actually exploring the storylines. So that's why it comes off very generalistic to attract audiences, including some of the other ones later on, of course. But one other thing, I guess this is back onto Buggy, right? So he's immune to the punches. And then later on, I mean, his weakness, quote unquote, is that if you just contain his body parts, okay, well, I guess that's how you beat him and stuff like that. Is to just contain him. All right, I guess that's a more unique way to beat him, I guess. And then they did do the little Buggy one, like the hands, feet, and the head. Okay, I like that. They kept that in there. My only disappointment is that they didn't actually touch upon his hairstyle. is for those who don't know, the blue thing that comes off of Buggy's hat is actually his hair. He actually has really long hair, but decides to do long pigtails or whatever, and incorporates that into his hat. So when you take off his hat, there's even a drawing of it, and it has Buggy's hair like all crazy like and whatever. Because you can kind of see in the anime later on when he's in Impelled Down, he has long hair. He has it tied in the ponytail later on. So he's supposed to have long hair, but here it's just covered up with the bandana or whatever. So whatever, nitpicking, but it's kind of minor. But it's just those things like somebody didn't read up on their homework quite or read up on their textbook quite thoroughly, you know. While they did, yes, get some of the other fan servicey notes, they didn't see this one, I think. Maybe they didn't get that done in time, or this didn't work in movie production reasons, but that was missing, no less. But that's it for that one. Episode 3, that had the great looking ships and sets. Sham, one of Kuro's lackeys, right, or the crewmates or whatever, is a chick here. That's one of the only like gender sort of swaps they've done, but it's a pretty minor one, I'd say. It's a side character, not that important, other than the fact that yes, Sham is a member of the Black Cat Pirates. This also is the episode where Arlong actually meets up with Buggy pretty early. Same with Kuro. And this is where it comes inconsistent with Buggy's powers, right? Like, Luffy can't punch him, but which is kind of like a Kung Pao reference, yes. But Kuro can palm strike him, and you know what I mean? It just doesn't make sense, right? Even with it was like one of the, it almost looked like a force push, right? With the Fishman Karate. Maybe they wanted to bring out that side of the Fishman Karate early on, but with Kurobi, it looked like he did a palm strike, whether it's air or water or moisture, you know, within human bodies or whatever, or I don't know, whatever. He palm strikes him and gets Buggy, right? Instead of Buggy like, you know, splitting his body part to soften the impact or whatever, he didn't quite do that for some reason. Maybe Kurobi knows hockey. I don't know, because hockey does get hinted with Shanks in this one. Anyway, Arlong meets up with him. It was kind of interesting to see. Usopp meets up with Kobe, another interesting sort of meetup that doesn't happen in the anime. And I think here Luffy drinks liquor or something like that. I'm not sure what he was drinking. Maybe it was sparkling cider or something. I don't know. But usually Luffy's not supposed to drink alcohol. He doesn't like it. So that's why he drinks milk. Which he did in the Baratie episode. But yeah, anyway. It's kind of a weird thing to see if that is true. But anyway. This one, episode 4, it's somewhere where the dialogue gets a little mushy and messy. The delivery of some of the lines could have been better, including Kaya. Also, Mary does show up here somewhere, right? Either in episode 3 or 4. But he dies. He actually just straight up dies. Like, holy shit. I didn't even expect that. I was like, yeah, okay, maybe Mary lives after getting stabbed and stuff like that. But no, his body gets thrown into the well along with Zoro, right? It's like, oh, that's wow. They actually killed him off, right? And he wasn't a butler at all. He was just an accountant for Kaya for a long time, apparently. So that was one big change that they did with Mary, at least. One big difference too is that Kaya was being poisoned slowly over time instead of her being sick due to stress and emotional distress of losing her parents and being secluded, right? Being alone, not having friends too much, you know, just very emotionally drivenly sick. But here, it's all about the tea, right? It's all about the blue stuff, you know? The liquid blue crystal, like, you know, Breaking Bad. No. Just the blue stuff, right? Which yeah, I guess he was just being poisoned slowly, but that, I don't know, could not make sense. I don't know, because, like, you think you would notice by now or something. Like, oh, I started getting sick when this guy was here. Right? And it took somebody else to point that out to you. I don't know, maybe, whatever, right? Oh yeah, so this is also another different thing where Usopp and Kaya actually have romantic moments. They share a kiss, and it was kind of cute. It was pretty funny, Luffy's like, "Wait a minute, I'm the captain though," and then Nami was just like, yeah, just let him have it. Let him have this moment. So I thought it was cute, but it's a little weird because yeah, like, One Piece isn't really supposed to have romance, other than some other key scenes or whatever later on, but they don't really supposed to have romance. But okay, all right, I'll let them have that. Um, this is okay. I forgot to mention the music here. The music here was a miss overall, but they did play "We Are," and I believe they played "Family" at the end of episode 4 for some reason, and not so much in episode 8 for some reason. It's pretty weird, but okay, they did it. But it should have been saved that they should have saved that at the end, but they didn't for some reason. And there was one character missing here, and that was Django, right? He was kind of the key reason how he was able to plan the ruse with Captain Kuro, him being the butler, right? Guess what, right? He faked his death largely thanks to Django, right? Because he hypnotized Morgan to believing he captured Captain Kuro, but he captured a fake Captain Kuro, and then Kuro used that as an exit door for him to retire from piracy. So, that is this like one of those key things that was missing here. Of course, I'm not gonna say it here, but the context, right, very much missing here. But anyway, Garp is already revealed as a grandpa of Luffy, pretty early, really early, in fact. So I don't know how much sense that would make with this storyline here, but I guess we'll see. I did write here that it was interesting to see in concept, right, of how they did it with Kuro's battle, right? With how much, or what they did with the mansion here. They kind of turned into like a psycho horror house kind of thing, which is kind of interesting, with the lighting and all that stuff. That's where it kind of got appropriate, right? With the dark lighting, that's where it gets appropriate, and it does play with Kuro's speed pretty well here. Although it limits him in the way too. It's like a double-edged sword. It limits his space. But maybe because they wanted to be a little more realistic on that. But whatever. I kind of wish they did his speed a little differently. So it's supposed to vanish, right? Instead of being a blur. He just vanishes. That's how fast he is. And in fact, I think that effect would have been a lot easier to do rather than the blur, the weird blur that he was been doing. But it was interesting to see that the horror side of things with Kuro, stabbing through the wall and everything. That was pretty dramatic, right? In concept, could it have been executed better? Yes, absolutely, sure. But it also limits the space, like I said, in return. So disappointingly, we didn't get to see or how he explains his powers, right? The I don't know what the English word for it is, but cat out of the bag or pussyfoot maneuver or something, whatever. Stealth walk, that kind of thing. Pussyfoot maneuver is from the Shonen Jump translation, by the way. I got that. That's where it came from, literally. I kid you not. Anyway, I think I think stealth walk is the most popular translation for it. Anyways, he didn't do his death scoop. He didn't do his Shakshi attack, whatever you call it, which is disappointing. That's like his big signature move, but he never got to do that. And which is also weird because Buggy didn't do Chop Chop Festival. He only did Chop Chop. Well, I mean, he kind of did, but he didn't say it. He only did Chop Chop Cannon, which he did say out loud. But with Kuro, never did his moves officially. So that was unfortunate. And I kind of wish he played around with his opponent more to show that, yeah, he's very cocky and let that be his downfall more. But he kind of just scratched him a little bit, and that's pretty much it. you know. I kind of wish also that Luffy's hockey kind of came into play already, just to make it more sense. Otherwise, it just comes off like cliche, like, oh, that one little squeak he did on the floor, and then gets his ass hit, ass beat like that. Yeah, a little disappointing there. But I like the concept of it, instead of like fighting on that hill in the original anime, which still does hold up on its own, I think, with storylines. But when it comes to just visual concept and stuff like that, I think, yeah, visually interesting attempt with this one, with the haunted house stuff and everything. Although it kind of disappointing with Zoro versus Butchie and Sham, that was kind of disappointing there, to be honest. But other than that, was there something else to say? Oh yeah, and there's that extra scene with Kobe and Helmeppo with Luffy and stuff like that, and Luffy throwing up on Helmeppo, which is kind of funny. Um, and then what was it? There was one thing I wanted to say, but I'm kind of forgetting. Forgive me here. Well, this is a different thing, but at least they got the glass push with Kuro. That I'm glad to see. The mannerisms that they got with Kuro was pretty right, and it's pretty much Kuro. It's believable. It's that's how he would act, kind of in a live action setting, kind of thing. That's what I kind of sort of wanted to say, but there's one more note that I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm forgetting. But it also goes to show, like, yeah, Usopp is the liar of the town, but it never gets resolved. It never gets resolved. It's kind of just like glossed over, and they're kind of just really rushing things. And I'm just wishing that there was some sort of resolve between Usopp and the rest of the people, right? They never got to really show that in the whatchamacall, in Netflix, but also in even in the anime as well. I mean, they know that he's doing it because of reasons, right? They know it. They know it. They're aware of it. But that's pretty much it. And then we get to see one little extra scene with Kuro, on the rowboat, rowing away, lonely. Maybe then he meets up with Django or something. I don't know. That would be pretty funny, actually. Other than that, yes, there's probably something butchered in there as well, other than the other things I've already said. But oh, I know what it was. I forgot to mention that that's where Zoro got hit in the head with the wine bottle, and he just falls flat on his face. He's supposed to be like super strong, so it's like, what the hell? That's so weird. But they just did that for story reasons. And then Zoro's strength is like also very inconsistent. Forgot to mention that too. And he's supposed to be able to just get out of the well pretty easily, right? If he has super strength, but for some reason he has had such a hard time getting out of the well and stuff like that. When he could just use his swords, right? Just and then kind of like how he hiked his way up from the oily hill with the swords. That was pretty funny. Because that was the wrong hill too, so that was pretty funny as well. But that was when we did see Zoro's past and stuff like that, which I thought was all right. I thought it was pretty well done for what it was. With young Zoro, I thought that they casted young Zoro pretty well, because he kind of looks like Makenyu, but I thought that was pretty cool. Admittedly. Alright, so episode 5, let me see. So, Don Krieg and Ging's storyline gets butchered here, of course. Ging is supposed to be pretty important in this storyline as well. He also uplifts Sanji's character in a way, too. But not only that, it kind of just shows like the other sides of being a pirate, right? There's dishonorable ones, and of course there's very loyal subordinates, right? Who are willing to die with you to the end, no matter how much of an asshole you are, right? Especially with Don Krieg, and that gets lost because Don Krieg is kind of like the measuring stick for Mihawk here. So I thought yeah, I thought that was pretty funny or interesting that they never showed Don Krieg, even though he's supposed to be one of the East Blue Pirates villains, right? You know, he was the main villain for Baratier, but he's not here. He's just kind of like there for the sake of being there. Well, unfortunately, I didn't like that they tried to include his weapons, but they didn't have the armor stuff open up and have the guns there. He just had a big shoulder cannon, and that's about it. And then I think he had two pistols or whatever. But that's about it. Um, he didn't get to bring out his bomb spear. That was disappointing. Or his the mighty battle spear. That was disappointing. So it was just disappointing to see Don Krieg kind of just thrown away like that. You know. Because yeah, even though he's like a very generic villain on the surface, he's just very memorable to me because of the voice. I love his performance in the Japanese side of things. You know, it's very memorable to me anyway. Especially with the voice actor, I thought that was very cool. You know, he's the same voice actor as Kenpachi in Bleach. Um, but yeah, unfortunately, Ging gets kind of thrown to the side. He's just kind of just like there to explain that, oh, we went to the Grand Line for a little bit, we got our ass whooped. That's it, you know. And yes, Sanji feeds him, but that's pretty much it. And like I mentioned before, I believe Johnny and Yosaku are missing. You know, that is disappointing too because they kind of help out Zoro. It also uplifts Zoro in the way too that yeah, he's friendly too as well. Like he had friends back then. So that's kind of weird for him to not say those things when they had when Zoro and Nami were having that drinking game. Let me see. Yes, Sanji smokes here at least. There was something interesting stuff with Garp and Kobe, right? With the Go game and you know the strategy and stuff like that. That strategy talk. There was oh man, that part where Zoro tries to challenge Mihawk to a duel. Some of those lines could have been better delivered. You know, it's that stoicness that really continues to be too much, I'd say. And yes, Mihawk is essentially the main villain here. And I wanted to say also, Mihawk was great. I think he pretty much is Mihawk on screen in real life. You know, I thought that was pretty cool to say. And also, that whole Baratier stuff was definitely the best one, in my opinion. I don't know if I got a chance to say that in the general review. Maybe I'll try to snip it over there. But anyway. So yes, the Baratier episode was definitely the most interesting one because it brought out the most of One Piece in some ways, to me anyway. And yes, there was that duel, of course, with Mihawk and Zoro. There was the moment where he was doing, you know, Zoro was doing 3,000 worlds, the spinning and everything, but then he stops spinning them and then just tries to just go through him, like nothing was happening, almost like nothing, like he wasn't even spinning the swords anymore. He could have, you know, I wonder why he didn't do the spinning swords and then go through him like that, right? Pretty weird, you know, pretty weird cut there. And Mihawk was there because he was ordered to, pretty much, not because he wanted to. So that kind of changed up his character in a way. It gives him more of like, yeah, he actually does follow the Marines a little more than he does in the anime. In the anime, he kind of just did what he wanted to do because he's Mihawk, right? You know. Well, that's episode 5 notes. Episode 6, Sanji denies some ingredients, like, you know, oregano. Oh, oregano's for, I don't know, old people or something. I forgot what it was. It was like, I forget the insult or whatever. But speaking of which, Sanji and Zeph, again, if I haven't said this already, was the best part of it, I would say. Carne is missing here, which is Patty's friend. Yes, Patty is there, but Carne unfortunately is missing there. Actually pretty interesting here. Zeph actually loses the leg the original way in the manga. In the anime, they actually deviate from how he lost his leg. in the anime, Zeph lost his leg through having the two ships lodging in on his leg like that. And then he used the big anchor chain to pretty much like cut it off, to pry it off almost. And then maybe he ate the leg or something still. I don't know. But he pretty much had no food to eat while Sanji still had all the food given to him, right? So, respect to that. They actually went with the manga storyline of how he lost his leg rather than the anime one. So, pretty cool. What was also interesting was that Nolan's tale was actually told here early on during Zoro's sort of sleep when he was recovering from the big slash, which had no blood in it, or blood splattering all over. That's the weird, inconsistent violence that it had. Yes, Arlong arrives early to the Baratier. He actually interacts with more humans, which is kind of interesting. Takes away Nami, of course, in the process. Unfortunately, Hachi is missing. Hachi could have been watching the base along with his men, but he is missing entirely. That's really disappointing. He's like actually a pretty good character later on too, which is kind of disappointing. Maybe he may still show up. Maybe he parted ways early on, but still disappointing that we didn't get to see him in live action form, of course. And I would have to say, Arlong and the rest of the men kind of came out the roughest in translation of the live action anime, but really, what could you do? Buggy's powers are butchered once again because of the head, right? It doesn't really show the range that the anime mentions or the original story mentions. And then episode 6 kind of brings out the classic sort of like cliche slash plot conveniences where Arlong doesn't kill him. Instead, he just drops into the ocean and lets him drown. It's so stupid because there's already a lot of people who could have saved him, including Sanji, Usopp. There's just no tension there, so it just makes Arlong look stupid in a way. Like, Arlong could have let him go because he's not worth his time or something like that, but he just instead... It's just some weird line that Nami gives. It's like, why would you bite him down when he's a devil fruit user and stuff like that? Yes, the sea takes away people's powers and stuff like that, but the tension just wasn't there because he knows that people are there to save him. There's Sanji, there's Usopp, there's anyone else really that could have saved him. So that's some of the dumb plot holes or whatever that I definitely have noticed. Episode 7. Alright, we're almost there. Genzo has no pinwheel, unfortunately. That was like one of the defining traits of Genzo besides his scarred face. So in the Netflix one, Luffy calls him Scar Guy or whatever, Scarface Guy. But there's no pinwheel, and then Luffy got inspiration from the pinwheel to do his big move against Momu, right? And wax the shit out of all the other fishmen. And yeah, not to mention, yeah, Hachi is missing. Momu is also missing, which is also kind of understandable, but also weird too. Let me see. And then, of course, Sanji cooks a meal to get information from Nojiko. So, little different context there, but they kind of still got the end result. But the context of Nojiko is also really different too, because no one in the village knew what Nami was doing when everyone already knew. It's so weird, right? And then Nami was willing to join Arlong when Arlong took her away in the anime. I wrote the note here that yes, Nami delivered the line pretty well when she was stabbing her tattoo of Arlong. That was pretty good. Yes, Nami and Luffy's scene were at night. That's also kind of weird. Arlong and his pirates attacked the village, yes. Which is a little weird because he doesn't really do that. He only did that to one other village, right? To show that, hey, this is the consequence when you don't pay the tribute. Nami's village got fucked up, which doesn't happen in the anime. I don't think anyway. Some of it does, but they get stopped because Usopp, right, at the first time. It's there's a lot of things going on, but they just attack it straight up, and that's how the villagers were motivated to rebel against Arlong. Um, so yeah, it also shows, yeah, that's where Nojiko had to tell them Nami's true intentions instead of them already knowing it, and they're just like, "That's enough, Nami. You know, you did enough." You know, that sort of thing. That context is so different, right? That's what I'm talking about here. You know, that a lot of that stuff gets lost or missing. All right, but the last one though, um, Arlong's loophole isn't well explained, or it doesn't exist. So the loophole is that, Arlong made a deal with Nami, right? First off, that if she gets 100 million berry, he'll let her buy off the village. But he never said that the money had to be stolen or whatever, right? From anyone else. So Arlong didn't necessarily took her money, right? He had someone else take the money for him, and that was kind of like his loophole, quote unquote. Like, oh, I didn't do anything. That was the Marines. Sorry. Gotta get the 100 million berry again. Sha ha ha ha, that sort of thing. That's where Nami gets pissed off and starts, stabbing, her tattoo and stuff like that. He had a loophole all along, but I mean, I guess you could call it that, maybe, I don't know. But it just never wasn't clear. It never connect in the Netflix version. And this is weird too, right? Why is Arlong needing a map for the Grand Line when the fishmen come from the Grand Line in the first place? You know what I mean? It's so weird. It's so weird. They never needed a map. They just wanted Nami back just because, money and stuff like that. And she's their navigator and stuff like that. It's so weird that he needed a map for the Grand Line when, again, fishmen come from the Grand Line. That's why Arlong was scary, because he came from the Grand Line. He is the stepping stone for the Grand Line for Luffy, essentially. Okay, I thought that was a really weird plot line, or a plot hole, that they left. Arlong does bring out the Saw Sword or the Kiribachi, but that gets short-lived. Probably understandable because, budget reasons. They don't want to do the spinning attack that he does or something. It could have been weird looking. I don't know, but kind of disappointing. They could have had him swing him a bit, and then Luffy somehow shatters it or something. I don't know, with something else. Arlong's nose was never broken, maybe due to constraints of budget, right? It would have been cool to see the live action stuff, and then when Arlong was trying to stop Luffy from breaking down the castle, right, he just charged at him instead of doing the shark on darts attack that he did, or shark darts, I forget what the English translation is, but he just charged him at him instead of like using his nose, right? He's called Saw Nose Arlong for a reason, right? He never uses Saw Nose though. Very weird. He never uses his nose to attack people. He only bit people to do so. Yeah, probably due to the nose. They trying to keep the nose not from breaking, I guess. So I guess that's understandable. And then breaking the castle. Not to speaking of which, Arlong never cared about the castle. He said he could have replaced it. What he cared about were the maps that Nami made. That's what he cared about. So there's a bit of a plot hole there. It's just weird. It's like, it doesn't add up. Like, what? Why should Arlong care about the castle? He can just rebuild it with the money that he has, right? So that's why it's just such a weird reason. It's just that writing that just doesn't come up. It doesn't have substance to it because, he's Arlong. He's got the money. He can just rebuild stuff. He just have the humans rebuild it for him. Again, what he cared about were the maps. Luffy in the anime was knocking out the maps out of the building, and that's what got to Arlong's his psyche, right? Like, no, my maps, but instead it's no, my castle, which makes no sense. The maps are very valuable. That's what can't be replaced, because Nami is the one who made them, and Nami's the best navigator out there, right? You don't want to lose Nami's maps. So that's why there it makes more sense. And there's a moment where Nami starts to come around for Luffy, once again, and she's like, thank you, Luffy, right? Because he's essentially freeing her from the slavery of Arlong, ironically enough. You know, like he's essentially saying, fuck this, I'm freeing her, kind of thing. So anyway, after beating Arlong, Garp shows up, and Luffy have a fight with each other, right? Very different, but that gets resolved somehow, because he gets reminded of Gold Roger. And, I guess he just wants to have Luffy make sure he knows what he's doing, I guess. So he was testing him, I guess, and that's pretty much it. So let's see. Oh yeah, and then Luffy gets his bounty. He got his bounty really fast, but that's probably for convenience, right? For Netflix. And then, of course, Smoker finally shows up at the end in the credit scene, right? End credit scene. Pretty cool, pretty cute. He puts out the cigars on Luffy's poster. That's pretty cool. From what I was able to see, it looked promising. With the back of his head and the fur coat and stuff like that, the fur jacket. So that's essentially it. I know this is a really long video. I just love One Piece that much. So that's really pretty much all I got for what I have for One Piece, including spoilers and all that stuff. Thank you very much. I know it's been a long video, but that's what I've been waiting for, man. Just to see what the live action is like. And I'm kind of glad that this One Piece live action is not the butt of the joke like Cowboy Bebop was. There's no negative memes or anything like that for One Piece, surprisingly enough. So I'm all for it. That's cool. It's still a 6 out of 10 for me. And that's all I got. So thank you very much. What do you guys think of the One Piece live action stuff from Netflix? Do you wish to see more? Do you want to see a season 2? I'm up for it, I guess. That's something. I'll watch it when it's there. If it's not, then that's it. I can move on. But I don't know how far they're gonna go with it. But I guarantee you, I feel like they're gonna go for another season at least, and then cut it off from there. Maybe, I don't know. But there are some interesting theories though, including a certain warlord. Right? Well, I'll have to wait and see. So, I would like to say, One Piece live action is a success for the general audience. Is it still for me though? Not so much. Maybe I'll improve in the next season. We'll see. So hopefully they take notes of it and improve upon it. So thank you very much. This has been my review on One Piece Netflix, or Netflix One Piece. Thank you very much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and hope to see you all in the next video. Sean, out.